Welcome back. In this video we will be looking at the machine section of the BenchEzy Advanced settings. So let's get started. In this video we will look further into our settings in BenchEzy Advanced. This particular video will cover the machines section. During this we will look at our machine posts, our tools, and of course our machines. So firstly we'll look at our posts. Now this is basically just a list of all machine posts that we have available in our factory. First of all, we just have basically a post name. This is purely and simply an internal name. You can call your machine post whatever it is you like. This is purely so that when you see the post you know which one it is. We have 4 posts set up in this example, and as you can see they all have their own individual name and some default parameter settings set up here. So up here in our editing section we need to make sure that our data is correct. So basically we have for our BenchEzy Rover B post we have a default panel in X 3600. Now you would generally make these default panels up around the maximum panel limitations of your machine. Then we have our default panel width in Y, and then our default panel thickness in Z. We have our path to our post. Now this is the full Windows path to the actual .arp post file. It must include the .arp file extension. You can use the browse button to browse to your .arp file. You can also mark off your post as inactive. Now by marking it inactive, it will be unavailable for use with any machine that you will set up in the machine section of the machines, the settings. Now we can make changes to anything up in this area here, and then we can basically realize we've made a mistake. We can then cancel any of these by clicking on the cancel button, and it will then default back to our original data. So basically that is our settings for setting up our machine posts. Next we'll move on to our tools. Now this is a list of all tools available. Now it is not just purely and simply a list of tools available for one machine. You can see here by the way that I've named my tools here that I have my tools that are more so for my BenchEzy machine, but there's also tooling here for a Masterwood and a Morbidelli as well as a Texel. This list must be a list of every single tool. Now just because the tool is called in this one here a BenchEzy 6 right hand does not mean that I can't actually use it in my Morbidelli. Now it is quite common that in your BenchEzy you might use a 6mm right hand cutter, but then in your Morbidelli you also have exactly the same cutter. So that only means that you only have to set that tool up once in this area here. You do not have to have each tool set up for each machine. Now I've only done this purely and simply for demonstration purposes. So in this example here I've got a BenchEzy 6 right hand. Moving further down I've got a Masterwood 6 right hand. I've got a Morbidelli 6 right hand, and I also have a Texel 6 right hand. In a real world environment I have 4 tools set up here, but in the real world I would only need to have the 1 tool set up. As we select each tool here in the grid, you can see the information changes up here in the editing area. We have the tool name. Again, this is purely and simply an internal name. It has no effect on the way BenchEzy operates. We look at the travel direction. Now this particular tool is a clockwise traveling tool. You can tell it to travel counterclockwise. My preference is if it's a right hand rotating tool or clockwise rotation of the tool, I would travel the tool in a clockwise direction. We also then have the full Windows path to the alphacam.art file, which is the file that represents the actual tool. This path must include the .art extension or it will lead to issues elsewhere in BenchEzy. You can use the browse button to browse to where you have your .art file located. You can also mark the tool as inactive. By marking the tool inactive, it will not be available for loading into machines in this tool setup section further on in the settings. We basically then have to tell it what length we want our line in to be. Now these are expressed as multiples of the tool diameter. So looking here, my auto line in length is, I'm telling it I want it to be 11 times my tool diameter of 6 mil. So the approach length that AlphaCam will work out for this particular tool will be basically 66 millimeters. In the real world environment, again, it doesn't need to be anywhere near times 11. 2 is more like the actual figure that we need. Again, we now look at the auto line out length, same principle as the line in. It is expressed as a multiple of the tool diameter. We also now look in at the auto line in and out radius. This is the blend between the approach and then as the tool travels up against a machine part. So we want the radius to be 2 times the tool diameter. So again, using this tool as the example, the blending radius in this case will be 12 millimeters. But remember, it is expressed as a multiple of the tool diameter, which means we only need to have 2 in here. We then look at the auto approach angle. I like to machine my tools in at approximately 45 degrees. I find that that's works out to be quite a nice approach, which gives us basically no deviation on the machined edge. We also then tell BenchEzy what pocket cut width we want to use for each tool. Now, keeping in mind that this tool is a 6 mil diameter tool, I would like to use a 5 millimeter pocket cut width. By using 5 mil, which is obviously slightly less than the tool diameter, we will get that slight overlap on every tool pass, which means that when we'll end up with a nice flat and clean pocket operation. So as you can see, we're just moving, sort of looking down through a few other tools. The settings there, we look at this one here is the left hand. So as you can see, I want that tool to travel in a counterclockwise direction because it's a left hand rotating tool or counterclockwise rotation tool. All right, now moving on now to the next section, we will look at the machines. Now basically, as you can see, I have 4 machines set up here, and these machines I've set up purely for the demonstration purposes. My default machine is my BenchEzy Rover B. We have to have at least one machine set as a default. Now the default machine is the machine that BenchEzy will use by default and generate code to suit this machine each time a benchtop is generated. You can, on the fly, change the machine that you want BenchEzy to generate code for each and every time you generate a bench. So looking here, we have our machine name, again pure and simply an internal name, has no reflection on the way BenchEzy operates. We have then our machine post, and as you can remember from where we talked about our posts in the post section, we have our BenchEzy Rover B post. If for some reason I wanted to have a different post used with that machine, I can simply select the post from here and it will then be used by AlphaCam for this particular machine. We need to enter in here our NcCode file extension. Now our BenchEzy Rover B uses no file extension, but for an example, a BenchEzy skill will use a .iso file extension. The BenchEzy Rover B is my default machine. We can also then make a machine inactive. By making a machine inactive, it will not be available for selection in either setting up of the tooling or for code generation at the time you're actually producing a benchtop. We also have some other settings that we need to set up here for BenchEzy. We have our maximum panel length in X. So for my Rover B, I have it set up at 3655. Maximum panel width in Y, I have it at 1220. Maximum panel thickness, I have it set at 45. We have our travel limits. We have our safe rapid level. So the safe rapid level is the distance above the workpiece that we will allow AlphaCam to travel the router head at speed. So looking at this here, the bottom of the tool, in my case, must be 25 millimeters above the top of the workpiece for any rapid movements. The rapid down setting is telling AlphaCam that we will allow AlphaCam to plunge the tool rapidly down to 5 millimeters above the work surface, and at that point it must then slow and work it and then gently travel into the workpiece. We tell BenchEzy what type of machine it is, whether it's a pod or it's a nesting machine. Now my Rover B is nesting machine. We can look here at my masterwood setup, and it is actually set up as a pod machine. We tell BenchEzy what type of machine compensation we wish to use when we're generating our machine code. Might be a Rover B, works on machine comp of G41, G42. We also then tell BenchEzy what we would like to utilize as our machine origin. Now, if you imagine you're standing at the front of the machine looking at your machine, your bed has 4 corners. So we have the rear left, which is the furthest corner from you on your left, the rear right, the front right, and then the front left. Now, depending upon what you set here, BenchEzy will then automatically generate the code that is required to utilize that particular corner as your machine origin when you want to machine your bench tops. So that basically quickly covers the settings that we have to make sure we've got organized in our machine section. In our next video, we will then look forward to looking at our next section, which is the setting up of our actual tools. I look forward to talking to you then. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. Make sure you check out the next video in the series, which will cover the tool setup. Thank you.